Thank you very much, and I appreciate everybody's putting their email address on, so be sure that if you haven't, so we can all stay in touch. This is the most exciting part of the day as far as I'm concerned, and Tim will moderate. We have some of the wonderful outreach workers here that do actual street outreach for us to ask questions of, for them to talk a little bit about what they do. So why don't you all come up? How many of you are going to be on this panel? We have 4 chairs, but we can put more chairs up. And come on. No, well, there are more. Hi. And yes, yeah, that we can put one over here.
Yep, smart.
The other mic works also, so you can pass these mics around, and then I think this mic is live, so we can.
Here's the.
Oh.
mic. Okay.
Oh well, we'll need one for the audience. So they need to, and so just.
Dun, 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 dun. Yay! So these are all folks that I work with on a very regular basis, and they are some of the best outreach / case managers / social workers / fabulous people that you will want to meet. Oh, I'm sorry. So these are just fabulous people. But I would like everybody to introduce yourselves, and then I'm sure you all have lots of questions. So.
Hi, I'm Nakia. I work for Centerstone's homeless outreach team. I've been doing this for almost 5 years now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I'm Tiny Herron, and I'm the founder of the Forgotten Louisville, and that is a grassroots homeless outreach ministry here in Louisville, and I've been doing street outreach with Forgotten Louisville for about 15 years. I also work for St. John Center. We partner with Up for Women and Children as part of the street outreach team. That's just been in existence for the last year, but the numbers that we get to report to the city with the amount of people that we're engaging and services that we're providing are phenomenal. So we can answer any questions you have about that street outreach team as well.
Hello, I'm Carrie Dorton, and I work for St. John Center, and we partner with UP. I am the lead peer support specialist on the team, so basically I have lived experience myself being homeless and being able to meet people where they're at. I love doing that, and we just love assisting people and getting them connected to the resources in the community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Andrea Scott, and I am one of the founders and directors of Up for Women and Children. We are a drop-in day shelter that opened last July in 2018 for homeless women and children so that they could have a safe space to be, utilize showers, laundry, case management. We help with IDs and birth certificates. They can receive their mail there. And we really work to unite partners, which is what UP stands for. So we bring in a lot of providers like Phoenix Family Health Centers. They send us a nurse practitioner and a mental health therapist. We work with Wellsprings. They come to help our ladies with housing. So we just try and provide as many services in our tiny, small basement space. We partner with Christ Church Cathedral, so we are located on South 2nd Street, right across from the Omni Hotel. But the women can just stop in any Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 1. They're welcome to come whether or not they have children and utilize our services.
Hello, my name is Paul Bliss. I work for Wellspring. I'm the team supervisor and lead clinician for our ACT team. Been doing this for about 20 years in Cincinnati, Ohio, so I've been in Louisville for about 3 years. I work with Phoenix, UP, St. John's. We help connect clients with housing and psychiatric services.
Do any of you want to say anything in particular? So we've been at this for now for a couple hours, but basically, because I asked beginning, there's a lot of volunteers. There's also some staff members. There's also just some general community members. I'm sure there's church clergy members as well. But we've focused today a lot on compassion, trauma-informed care, really focusing on the approach to make sure that they understand that we don't escalate clients, we don't trigger clients. And then we've talked about de-escalation and best safety practices. Because I think a lot of individuals are having encounters like on church grounds where they find individuals sleeping and they don't know them, and so they're having to have a cold approach to them. So I don't know if you all want to start with, if there's anything that you particularly find helpful or if you've learned over the years as ways to approach, or if you, I don't know if anybody.
Hey, I think the most important part is being you. Don't approach them like you're going to be able to save their life. You might be able to, which is great, but be a person. Keep in mind that you're dealing with a person. And I'm me all day, every day. My clients know that. And so when I see someone out, if I don't know them, I'm like, hey, how are you? What you doing here? You know, can I help you with anything? Do you need anything? Warm bed? You need a sleeping bag, a tent, you know. Sometimes it's just those basic necessities that they need, but keep in mind that you're dealing with people. I think that that's like always my number one advice when I'm teaching people how to do outreach. They're people. They're not a homeless person. They're someone who is experiencing homelessness. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and if you notice the way that she said a person experiencing homelessness, our language is so important how we talk to individuals. So by saying a homeless person, that's a label. By saying a drug addict, that's a label. And, you know, you need to treat everyone as a human being. That could be your son, your daughter, your spouse, your brother, your father. A real eye-opening experience for me one time doing homeless outreach in an encampment. When a young man came out from the encampment, he immediately recognized me. We graduated high school together. And I was like, wow, you know, that could be me. And many people are a paycheck or a relationship or a drink away from experiencing homelessness. So our language is very important, especially when it comes to those that suffer with substance use disorder, because we are constantly keeping that stigma going. There's so much guilt and shame that comes along with the stigma, which is increased use. So you're doing nothing but keeping that cycle going. And another thing to remember is not to come from a place of judgment or better than, or I have the answer, or my way is the right way. Everything we do is client-centered. They're driving this ship, you know. If someone that we're engaging with is asking about treatment options for their substance use disorder, that's completely up to them. And we let them know, you don't have to be clean and sober for us to engage with you or offer you services at all. But what you will find is once you build that relationship, you spend time with engagement and building relationships, 9 times out of 10, they're going to reach out to you for something. And one time that might be, I'd like to get into treatment today. And we get to experience that every day. And it is the greatest part of my job is when somebody comes to me and they're wanting to get into treatment, or they're, you know, asking for safe practices to manage their life, how they're living their life at the moment. And another thing I want to encourage you all is how this started for me, and I'm probably one of the most enthusiastic people in the world when it comes to street outreach. My dad was a preacher of a church right here on 2nd and College Street. It's a auto place now. But from the age of 3, I knew what someone experiencing homelessness was. I knew what addiction was, because our doors were always open, but most people coming into our building, the church building, was hungry or they needed clothing. And thank God my parents role model for me to love my neighbor. So as a faith-based community, you have a huge opportunity to make a difference in our community. And not just an opportunity, but I hold you guys to a higher standard than I do the regular population, the regular community. It's what we're supposed to be doing. Get outside of the 4 walls of the building, number 1, but treat people how you want to be treated. You never know when just a smile is going to make a difference in somebody's day.
I don't really like talking on a microphone. I'm getting a little shy up here. I think it's very important, you know, since doing outreach and, you know, like I said, shared with you all, being homeless myself before, meeting people where they're at. You know, meeting people where they're at is so important. You know, and like Tiny said, coming, you know, with non-judgmental, you know, and the main thing is just to build that rapport, build that relationship. You know, it doesn't happen overnight. We've encountered several individuals in the beginning that wouldn't even talk to me or gave me a fake name. But I kept coming back. And I would sit on the steps with them of the bando where they were sleeping at, you know, or, you know, go to their campsite, you know, or we've even come over here to this church, you know, and I got out and sat out back. And we just talk to individuals, you know, and we meet them where they're at, and we let them know, you know, what we can offer. You know, and it's important that they know that, you know, they don't have to do this, they don't have to do that. Because if they feel like they have to do something, they don't want to do it. You know, so I just think it's important that, you know, we do meet people where they're at, and we show that compassion. Because, you know, people are people, they're human beings. They want love. They want to feel cared for. And it's hard out here on the streets. What people are experiencing is very, very hard. It's very traumatic. You know, I think it's a great idea to open up, you know, to have a breakfast or a coffee or something until the women can get to the women's day shelter at 9 o'clock, because there is a gap. And women need a safe place to go in this community. They really do. When they have to leave the shelter at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. That would be a wonderful opportunity for women to have somewhere safe to go, if that's something we could do. Because you don't know how many times I've heard women that even come to St. John Center, which is a men's day shelter, but since we're there now, they'll come and say, where's outreach at? Because they just need somewhere safe. They've just been assaulted. They were raped. You know, so if y'all are thinking about doing that, I think that's a great idea.
So I think for me, as a reminder, that's been really helpful for us is Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. That I know that they're experiencing homelessness, and so housing is a huge piece, mental health may be a huge piece, but sometimes just meeting those most basic needs are what is so important to them, and a great way to build relationship with them. Because until they have their basic needs met, they can't accomplish those other pieces. And so for us, that's what we have found it up. Just by offering that safety piece, that's a basic need for all of us. Sometimes it's just a place to warm up. It may be, we keep oatmeal packets, something to eat, a pair of socks. So, I mean, sometimes offering those things are really a way to build relationship with them and to really help them. It may not seem like something big to you, but it is big to them because it is helping them meet their most basic needs that they're unable to meet for themselves.
So I just wanted to, first off, I'm so happy that you guys put on this training and that Tim did it, because I'm a clinician, so I do get to diagnose, and I think you'd be shocked to see how many people fit that PTSD diagnosis. I know we've all heard the stories of what people have gone through, so trauma-informed care is really important, and I'm so glad that you all put it on. The only other thing that I would mention, I know Tiny said it and Carrie said it, is meeting the clients where they are at, especially when it comes to substance use. They tend to use that as a coping skill, so telling them don't use, they already know that. So, but they're dealing with other things, so try to be non-judgmental and recognize that they are using that for usually another reason. That's all.
I have a question for Andrea. Andrea, what is open? Andrea, what is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the women?
So there is Recenter Ministries. They used to be Louisville Rescue Mission, and they are on Jefferson Street. They are a little different in that they offer, women can come in, so they have changed their hours and their model, and now they do offer daytime safe space for the women. They offer showers, laundry. My understanding is they have to sign up for those things ahead of time, though, so they may have to make an appointment. But they are a safe space that they can be and have a cup of coffee. They can receive mail there and store a bag there. So that's kind of the extent of the services of Recenter Ministries, and they're located on East Jefferson Street. So, yeah, so we recommend to our women that that is an option for them to go on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
I'm also
Yes, they are.
at Recenter every Friday. Me and my team are there every Friday. I think they're open from 8 to 2 every day, Monday through Friday. So I am there providing case management services and outreach to the women that come in every Friday.
Thank you.
You talk about meeting people. Oh, I feel like I'm so close to you. Oh, okay. Meeting people where they're at. And so I intern at the Hotel Louisville, so like I have some interaction with people, but I only see them once a week, if that, only for a couple hours. So I wonder, well, my question is, when do you intervene, or what are some signs where you can talk to a person and gauge what they'll need, or like have a conversation, like if you're walking on the street or something like that? Like, what's your advice for meeting people where they are?
I just, I just say, hey, how you doing? If you see, I can kind of tell if somebody's distressed, or if they may need some assistance or some resources. And I'll just start a conversation with them like I am with you. How you doing? I'm Carrie. I work with St. John Center and Up. Do you need anything? A lot of times they'll just start having conversation with me. Now there are times, like Tim said, you have to be safe, because we deal with some people that do have severe mental illness, and sometimes they don't know personal space. So it is very important to be, have that trauma-informed care, to look for them signs. So you just have to be safe, make sure you're watching your surroundings and things like that.
Also, another thing that works for me, and I know Carrie can definitely speak on this too, is if you've got a story, share your story. Because a lot of times, something that you've been through may be what somebody is experiencing right now. And so in sharing my story with people, that opens up a whole nother can of worms sometimes, and we can talk about a lot of things, and it might be exactly what that person is dealing with. It helps. I hate stigmas and I hate labels so very much. So I like to share my story all the time. I'm an open book. And that helps people loosen up their judgment a little bit also. Some people might think, well, what's this little blonde girl know about this or that or whatever? And then we get to talking, and I can get to share with them, like, I do know what you're going through. Let me tell you what I've been through. And it is about meeting people where they are in their need and just having a conversation with them. And then, you can explain to them what your role is in your profession right now. And then, is there anything that I can do for you? Or is there, someone that I can reach out to find that resource for you? So we work together with so many community agencies. Like, if we can't offer something, I call Tim every day, we call Paul every day, we're up all the time, Centerstone. Like, we work together as a team all day long to tap into the resources that we have in the city.
Especially if you're a student, I think it's so important to identify your role and your limitations. Because if you help them with one thing, then some of the clients will be like, they'll come to you for everything. And then you really have to educate them, okay, I helped you with what I can help you with, now let's get you to somebody else who can help you. Because we want to be the person who can fix all the problems, so we can't, and that's not our roles. And it's really not fair to teach someone that we're their savior when we're not, if that makes sense. So.
Tim, I have a question. You were talking about de-escalation earlier. Most of us are members of congregations, and we've probably all been in the situation where we've had someone in the midst of the congregation. Are there any basic things that will work to kind of remove the person? And I know we can deal with them once they're removed, but are there any tried and true things when there's someone right in the midst of a congregation during a service?
That's a tricky one. Anybody want to start us off with that?
Well, I know in our shelter at St. John's Center, we're a day shelter for homeless men, and it's just a big open space.
It's an old church, actually.
Yeah, it's an old Catholic church building. And so things will pop off all day long, and someone will get really loud, or, you know, it might be a verbal altercation. There's been physical fights in there and stuff, but we as a staff have been trained, obviously, in de-escalation skills and stuff like that, but it's really neat to see when something pops off out in the shelter, how the staff just kind of, we don't surround that person, but we just kind of come out of our offices or whatever, to make sure that those in the shelter see our presence, because that can help create some calmness with the others that are around. And then usually one or two staff member will approach the individual that's being loud or disruptive or whatever, and keeping our voices very calm and not touching and raising our hands and whatever, you know, just explain to him, you've got to calm down or you're going to be asked to leave. You can't respond this way. You know, there have been physical fights and stuff, and we have to call the cops several times a week to come to the shelter. But just being aware of and trying to remain calm yourself and speak very calm, and watch your body language, and kind of as you're talking with that you know, we need to get you to move on out of here. Let's talk about this outside. And that usually always works. It usually always works.
That's perfect. And I think we were talking earlier about having like a compassion team. Yeah. And so like at Phoenix, I was talking, we have the Code Green team. So we have designated people who we know are good with people and who are good at like calming and de-escalating. And so just having those members so that if someone does come in and is disruptive, then the members of that team could just be like, you know, that's exactly what. And I think just it is interesting, but like if, like Tiny said, like if you're like, okay, here we go, and you're talking to them as you're walking, they will follow you. Yep. Yep. And then you just get them right on out, and then you can process whatever you need to process. That's perfect. That's exactly how we do it too.
And I think it's important to also note when they're loud, you're quiet.
Yes.
And it works with children. It works with adults. It works with everybody. When they get loud and they're escalated, your voice needs to be on a 1. And I think that brings them down. It brings them in. It lets them know that you're listening and intentional about what you're going to do or help them with.
And oftentimes when someone's really loud and you're really soft, the other thing that happens is that eventually they start recognizing just how loud they're being. And a lot of times, depending on the situation, they'll become embarrassed, and then it'll come down real quick, and often they'll leave because of that. And then again, we want them to allow them to leave if they need to. Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Just to share, you're asking about like in a congregation setting. I know that at Central Presbyterian they have, and probably most churches have people that are therapists professionally. And they have half a dozen or so, and they have like rocking chairs around the back for various groups of people who do better there. But they sit at the back, and if someone either comes in off the street and is agitated and needs to be kind of shepherded off to the side or talked to, or if someone has a problem during the service, they're there and they kind of just go up to the people, and they're trained to kind of de-escalate, and if needed, help them get out of the situation, like, leave. But probably most churches have people that could do that, and that might just be something you might want to think about having as a way of always having them available, because if someone comes in off the street, odd things happen. Yeah, or even just some calm person who's good at it. I mean, they don't have to be certified if they're able to do it, but it's worked there. I've heard of a lot of things on Monday mornings that happened the day before that was really helpful for them to have that person.
Thank you. I was wondering if you have resources for people who might have family members in similar situations.
Was the question resources for family members in similar situations?
Yes, who might have family members in similar situations.
Specific as like housing or experiencing homelessness or all of it or?
A variety of things.
Yeah, I mean, there, you know, the coalition has that Street Tips book, which is full of wonderful, wonderful resources. And then, of course, there are groups where you can, as a family member, if you have someone that is struggling with substance use, there's the actual groups for the family member to kind of process what they're feeling and what they're dealing with. We utilize a lot of outside resources anywhere and everywhere we can. Most of those that we engage with is the person that's experiencing the problem themselves. But we do get pulled into certain family situations, so you know we can help explain things to family members for the person that we're working with, if they wanted us to. You know, we try to keep that confidentiality always number one, because many people experiencing homelessness don't want to be found, or you know, they don't want family to know what's going on. But if family members reach out to us and they have a concern that there's somebody out here on the street, there is a way. You know, most of those phone calls we send to the coalition, and then there's a mass email that goes out to all of the service providers, a lot of the volunteer groups, like to be on the lookout for, or you know, get a message to this person. Does that answer your question, or? Okay.
Are you asking, like, if a family member comes to you and says, well, I have my son is experiencing this, what do I do? Is that what you're? Oh, okay, yeah. Like a support system for the family member. Like, so how the family member gets care for themselves, like how to handle and cope with what they're experiencing, and how to respond. So, yeah.
Substance use. There are lots of groups for family members that are dealing with that within their family. I don't know that there's any kind of specific support groups for a family member that has a family member experiencing homelessness.
I could go with them first.
But you definitely could reach out to any one of us, and I'm sure we could find someone that would be willing to talk to you that has been that family member dealing with that situation.
Yeah, I brought some cards. I brought some of my cards, so if you have somebody that might need some assistance or somewhere, you know, to turn or something, any way that we can help, we'll help. You know, and I just want to let y'all know that change is possible. You know, recovery is possible. I've been clean for over 9 years. I do it a day at a time. I'm renting me a 3-bedroom house now. I got my daughter. I'm taking care of her. And people can change. I just want y'all to know that, like Tiny shared, you know, that's part of what a peer support does. We meet people where they're at, and we can share our experience with them and let them know, you know, where I've been and where I'm at today. And recovery's in many different forms. Don't have to be the way I got it. You know, we do person-centered, you know, so we just help, you know, I hold their hand, walk them through it, whatever they want to do, to try to reduce the harm in their life and, you know, help them make the life that they want to have and let them know that it is possible. So, I mean, I have a sister that's still out on the streets in active addiction right now, you know, but the choice is hers. You know, I would help her if she wants the help, but I can't force her. That's the thing. So make sure you have some of our cards, and we'll help the best that we can.
I think it's important to note as well that our goals are not their goals. when I first started working here, I would do my intakes with people and I was so gung-ho, you know, and I would get my goals and I'm like, oh, obtain housing, right? Like, that's your first goal, right? No, it may not be. Some people, it might be 4 or 5 on the list before they get to obtaining housing. Their number one goal might be to get some new shoes or find underwear that fit. Get a bra. For the ladies, the bras are a big deal because they're just not donated enough, you know, and if you find one, you might not be able to find another. So basic needs a lot of the time are their number one goals. Housing may not be their number one goal. Getting clean might not be their number one goal, and that's okay. And so, like they said, and we've repeated, meeting them where they're at and remembering that our goals are not their goals. Their goals are their own.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Is there one more question? Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
I was wondering, Tim, if you work with any teachers or teacher advisors in the school systems?
Our program is open to anyone that is experiencing homelessness. We used to just work with single adults, but now we can work with families as well. So we do a lot of collaborating with JCPS, the Friskies at the school, the mental health counselors at the school, to try to get the children the resources that they need as well. Because you have to think, some of these kids, all they know is the shelters. All they know is the streets. They might have been brought up 4 years old and they've lived in the shelter their whole entire life. So the kids also need the resources as well, and we do collaborate with them as needed.
Well, what a wonderful event, and it's wonderful sharing it with all of you, and thank you all so much. We've been thinking about this for a long time. Thank you, everybody. I do want to say that there are evaluations in the back. We encourage you to fill out the evaluations that Aaron brought. And we hope to get out an electronic evaluation for you, but if you could fill out these, that would be very, very helpful. And Reverend Laurie, I think, is going to close us out here. And you're welcome to stick around if you want to continue talking. I hope that we can all work with each other in the future.
Thank you. Just one last word of thanks to all of you who have come here today. As people of faith, as people in fellowship with our fellow human beings, it's time for us now to go into our communities and put what we've learned here into action, and I invite you to go in peace and to go with passion. Blessed be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.